For asymmetrical tonic neck reflex, you're going to have the child in supine position. The onset for this is around birth. Integration is around 4 to 6 months. The stimulus for this is you're going to have the head laterally rotate. What you're going to see happen for a positive response is you're going to see this shoulder abduct, and you're going to have extension of the elbow, and then you're going to see just extension of the face side knee. In terms of the skull side, you're going to see abduction of the shoulder and flexion of the elbow, and then you're on the skull side as well, you're going to see a abducted hip as well as flexion in the knee. For a negative response or a not positive response, you're going to see pretty much limp arms, no reaction whatsoever. You'll see the head turn, and there'll be no response in either of the joints.
For the symmetrical tonic reflex, the onset will be at 4 to 6 months and integration 8 to 12 months. In a quadruped position, when the head is flexed forward, there will be flexion in the upper extremities and extension in the lower extremities. Oppositely, when the head is extended, there will be extension in the upper extremities and flexion in the lower extremities. A negative response will see no flexion or extension in either extremity.
The tonic labyrinth reflex, the onset for this is at birth. Integration is around 6 months. Now what's going to happen for the positive response is you're going to have the upper appendages and lower appendages all flexed. And what's going to happen is you're going to have flexor tone. If you try to extend one of these appendages, it's going to have even more flexor tone. The other one's going to be in the supine position on the back. And what the positive response is going to be is you're going to have extension in both the appendages. And if you try to move them, you're going to have even more extensor tone. Now, the negative stimulus for both of these, or the negative response for both of these, is going to be a lack of tone whatsoever. No response, no movement, completely relaxed.
For the downward protective extension, you'll hold the baby facing down. For a positive response, you'll see the arms reach forward to catch themselves and stop the fall. You'll see that around 4 months. For the forward protective extension, while the child is sitting, leaning forward, the arms will extend out to catch themselves and stop the fall. You'll see that at about 6 to 7 months. For a sideways protective extension, the arm on the side where the child is leaning will reach out to catch themselves from the fall. That will be at about 7 to 8 months. And then for the backward protective extension, the arms will reach back to stop the fall. That will be at 9 to 10 months. For an atypical response for all of these, you'll just see no arm movement or extension to stop the fall.
For tilting equilibrium, for prone it is onset at 6 months, supine onset at 7 to 8 months. The stimulus for both of those involves moving the body of the baby off the ball. An appropriate response is going to be a corrective movement of the head and upper torso towards the top to make them upright. A negative response involves no corrective movement for both supine and prone. Supine looks the exact same. It's going to be just like so. Downward movement to the stimulus, you're going to see a corrective measure of the upper torso and the head going upwards. A negative response would be going towards the stimulus, falling downwards. 2, 1. All right, sitting is very similar. The onset for this is 7 to 8 months because the child needs to be able to sit up. And then for this one, the stimulus is going to be just a movement to either side. Now the positive response that you're going to see is a corrective measure of the upper extremities, upper body, as well as the head to get into a more neutral position. And a negative response, or what is atypical, is usually what is going to happen is going to be no response whatsoever, or they even lean to the stimulus. That would be a negative reaction. For anterior posterior quadruped, for tilting equilibrium, the onset is around 9 to 12 months, just like lateral. And what's going to happen is if the stimulus is going forward and back, if we go forward, what's going to happen is you're going to have extension in the upper extremities, both arms, and then you're going to have flexion in the lower extremities. If we were going backwards this time, going this way, what you're going to happen is you're going to have extension in the lower extremities and you're going to have flexion in the upper extremities. This entire time, the head will be up. For a negative response, there's either going to be no tonicity whatsoever. You're going to be in the response of the stimulus. So let's say we're going backwards, there would be no response to the upper extremities, so they would just stay down. For standing, onset is 12 to 24 months. It takes a longer time because they need to be able to stand. For this one, it's the exact same thing, very similar. If you have a stimulus moving you laterally, forward and backwards, what's going to happen is if you go laterally, stimulus is going this way, what's going to happen is you're going to have extension into that stimulus leg, and then you're going to have flexion in the contralateral leg. Same thing going to the left, you're going to have extension in the leg towards the stimulus, the contralateral side is going to have flexion. A negative response would be no tonicity in the lower extremities, and what would happen is if you're going to the right, there would be no extension, and they would typically fall.